going to make a start, and I just want to open by thanking everyone for joining us live this evening. And if you're catching up online later, then thank you for your interest in this project. But before doing anything else, because I know that Mike has a very busy schedule, I'd like to introduce Mike Freer, who, as you know, has been our local MP in Finchley and Golders Green since 2010. And Mike has always been very, very supportive of our communal activities. And this is an opportunity for us to thank you, Mike, for everything you've done and continue to do to support Golders Green Synagogue. Now, as you may know, Mike was recently appointed to the government and now holds the role of Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Exports at the Department for International Trade. And it's in that role that Mike actually finds himself in Panama this week on a ministerial visit. But it's a huge credit to Mike that despite the logistical and time zone challenges, he was clear that he didn't want to do a pre-record. He wanted to try and join us live, for which we're extremely grateful. So without any further ado, over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Joel. And yes, I am actually in Panama City, and apologies I can't stay for longer, but once I just congratulate you on your work and initiative, I do have to rush off. I'm here on an exports visit, so I have to leave here to go and meet the Minister of Finance to try and smooth the way for British exporters to sell even more into Panama. So I did want to, Joel, as you said, I did want to do it personally. Golders Green Synagogue has been always a home from home. You know, we have, as you know, in the patch a large number of synagogues, and there are 2 or 3 of them who have, from day one, always made me welcome, and I've always been enormously grateful to the, if you like, not quite the spiritual guidance, but shall we say the Talmudic guidance I used to get from Harvey. So whenever I was kind of trying to understand, coming in, you know, not being Jewish, but trying to understand some of the nuances of the community and nuances of the faith, Harvey was always incredibly generous with his time and very patient with the rather daft questions I used to ask about how the faith worked and how the rules worked and how they'd evolved. So I'm very grateful for all the support that Golders Green Synagogue has given me. So genuinely, I was delighted to be able to support your activities. And what's been really pleasing to see is that the first time I visited the synagogue, you had that rather kind of tatty old building, sorry to insult the building, but a rather tatty old building at the back of the main shul. And of course now you have the wonderful school, and then you've seen the main shul being renovated. And so see that constant evolving and the thriving nature of the shul as you grow in your membership, which is driving this need to provide better and better facilities, is really, really heartwarming. Not least, of course, because during the pandemic, I know that it's been very difficult for so many people to be able to cope with being distant. You know, I do know that the ability to go to shul, and that not just on Shabbat, but for many of the weekday services and all of the other services and support that wraps around the shul, is so valued by members of the community. And the pandemic has created in many ways a rupture to that kind of close-knit community that people have come to love and rely on. And so as we come out of the pandemic, I'm delighted to see that Golders Green Synagogue is investing in facilities so that the community can come together again and find that support from the variety of activities that you put on. But especially pleasing is to see that the emphasis you're putting on to honouring the work of Sachs is really touching. And I always, when I visited on a Shabbat morning to sit in on a service, always was pleased to see Rabbi Sachs in his seat. And he was always very generous with his time as well. And so very patient with those from the outside as they asking those daft questions. But he was also someone that I never, ever looked forward to following, having to make a speech, because he was always far more articulate and far more erudite than ever I could be. But I think it is a true testament to Golders Green Synagogue to honour his memory. May he rest in peace, for the work you're doing. So my congratulations to the initiative, and I do hope that the membership support generously so that the community continue to grow and thrive. And I look forward to coming down to visit you in person as soon as I can.
Thank you very much, Mike, for those really warm words. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate you joining us, honouring us with your presence from afar, for your ongoing support of the community, and we'll let you get on with your meetings in Panama. So
thank you. Okay, be well, be well.
Thank you. So with that, let's get on with our programme. Now, let me just, yeah. So this evening's event comes at a, as you know, a kind of an opportune time for our community. Running another Zoom program like this brings back quite a lot of memories from lockdown. All of those evenings when we couldn't go out and the virtual world seemed to be holding us all together, whether it was for Maro, for a share, or for a panel discussion of some kind. But thank God we're moving into better times. Our services are not far back to normality, not far from being back to normality. We're back to in-person programming again. Our children's programs are overflowing, and we've embarked on a redevelopment project that will bring huge improvements to our physical space. The short program that we've put together this evening will give you an overview of the project, which we'll get onto shortly. It will give time for Q&A and some reflections on the dedication that we've made to Rabbi Lord Sachs and to Jonathan Davies. And finally, an appeal. You don't have to sit through a dinner or put on a black tie, but there will be an appeal at the end of the evening. The project has been several years in the making, and due to the complexities of managing a listed building, it's required intricate planning and approval that took several years. You'll hear more details on this shortly, but on behalf of everyone, I want to thank Peter Zinken and Naomi Verber, with the support of Phil James at the United Synagogue, for conceiving of this project several years ago and seeing it through to this stage. It's required an enormous amount of work and commitment and dedication to working with a very challenging building to create something meaningful for the community. So thank you to Peter, Naomi, and Phil. Tonight's fundraiser, as you'll have seen from our communications, is intended to raise funds for the later phases of the project. We've been fortunate to receive several generous legacy gifts and donations in advance, which, when combined with some surplus funds that we've kept over from the COVID period when we've been running less programming, have enabled us to make a start on the first phase. I want to express our thanks to those donors, and now it's going to be up to the rest of the community to step up and support the remainder. I hope you'll agree that supporting a project that's already underway is perhaps a little easier than supporting a pie-in-the-sky idea with a very large sum attached. So on the sum and the finances, you'll have seen from the fundraising brochure that the total amount we estimate for the entire project, including contingencies, is £350,000. The phased nature of this means not only that we've been able to make a start already, but also that whatever we raise tonight and in the coming days will determine how much we are able to improve our building before the builders pack up next year. Our excellent financial representative, Adam, is with us this evening and will answer any questions about financials later on. But before I hand over to Naomi on the project itself, I just want to say a very quick word about our community and why we believe that this is the right time to invest in a project of this kind. You probably know, but you may not recall the number of years. It's actually about 10 years since our first building, or our last building project, our previous building project, I should say, which took place around 2011, 2012, at the time of the opening of Ramon. And at that point, both our premises and our community were on the verge of a transformation. We often talk about the explosive growth of young members in the community. Just to give you a flavour of that from our membership data, in 2011, we had 115 people in the 21 to 50 age bracket, 115. That rose to 184 in 2016, and it's now at 219, almost double what it was a decade ago. So that's 115 members in the 21 to 50 age group, now at 219. And total net membership continues to climb gradually year on year. Now, I'm not saying that the 21 to 50 age bracket is any more important than any other. And indeed, the new space has been designed to be flexible so that it'll meet the diverse needs of our membership and provide new opportunities for all parts of our membership. But it does highlight the changing demographic of a growing community, and by extension, the need to invest in our facilities and our infrastructure. As we emerge from the pandemic, as we come back to in-person programming more and more. We need to preserve our heritage, our beautiful building, while building for the future. And we hope you'll support that need this evening and in the coming days. Now to tell you a bit more about the project, the scope of it and what's involved, I'm really pleased to hand over to Naomi, who I've already mentioned, but after stepping down as chair last year, Naomi kindly agreed to carry on managing the building project and continues to work closely with our builders, our architects, and our surveyors at the United Synagogue. So Naomi, over to you.
Thank you, Joel, and good evening to everybody. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for the slides. So as Joel said, our community is going through a renaissance, and it's really wonderful. Kind of have to pinch myself that we're actually at this stage where we're fundraising for a project that has been so long in the pipeline. Over the past 5 years, as Joel said, we've had a surge in young families moving to the area. The attraction of the shul, the rabbinic team, what we offer in our core services, the Ramon Primary School and the Little Goldies Nursery, all on one campus, compounded by the area of extension into the Golders Green estate area, has made Golders Green a really, really attractive place to live. And we've seen this in our membership growth. And I just wanted to say yasher koach to those visionary leaders before me who put these assets in place, because the plan is now coming into fruition. But that leaves us with a big problem on our hands, that we have a chronic lack of space to provide for our community's needs, and particularly for children at the ages between 0 really, all the way to 16. So what will this development look like? I thought it'd be best first to describe the spaces and then how they'll be used, so you can visualize what we mean. So here's an artist's impression of the new space. The development's all going to be taking place over the Litner Hall. So this is the ladies' gallery facing the Aron. As you'll see, there are two square rooms encased by glass on either side. These will be connected by an atrium in the middle. 2 rows of pews will remain in this atrium, but there will be a large space. It's over 2 meters wide, actually. We've now got planning permission for, which will connect these two parts, but also become a function space in its own right, and will be dedicated to the teachings of Rabbi Sachs, which Lady Elaine will talk through later. The key things the key points about these developments are: 1, they are multi-purpose spaces. The primary use for these 2 glass boxes will be to provide children's service spaces, primarily for our youth and years 5 to 6 on a Shabbat morning. The glass encasements are soundproofed to the highest decibel level for the weight of the glass, and have been designed in such a way that there is practically no leakage of sound into the main shul. This will be as I said, the primary use on a Shabbat morning, on a Saturday. However, we also have urgent need for this space Monday to Friday. Our Little Goldies Nursery, which is one of the key parts of our vision and strategy for growing our community, has been a real success. It's in its 5th year, and we regularly have waiting lists for children to join that nursery. The nursery not only provides a key service to our community in providing as a social enterprise affordable childcare, it also provides revenue to our synagogue and allows key functions to be supported, such as administration, security, cleaning, etc. With this additional space on the right-hand side, the nursery will be able to extend its provision, and it will result in, again, a more attractive place for people to move to in Golders Green, but also income for the shul. On the other side, on the left-hand side, the other glass box will also have an important use Monday to Friday. As our community has grown, our staff body has also grown in order to support it. So when the first development was done, I think it's 8 years ago now, there was just Joanna downstairs in the office who did a flexi time arrangement with another administrator. We now have a nursery manager who's full-time in the building, and we're also delighted to be bringing on board a new member of the team to support comms and events. So there'll be 3 members of staff working in our building regularly. And Joanne, I know you're on the call. You've suffered for a long time working in the office downstairs, which, to be frank, isn't really fit for purpose, and is not large enough to accommodate the staff body. So the idea is that Monday to Friday, the large room on the left will be, it will have a mobile partition within it. There'll be a modern working area established for our members of staff. And the space, which is very large, will be then suitable for use for the youth on a Shabbat morning. So this whole development is going to have use throughout the week for really urgent needs in our community. A couple of other points to raise about the space itself. Access, so this is an important one. Can I flick down on the slides, please, Joel? So here's an architectural drawing, so you can actually see how the space is going to be designed. Structurally, the space remains the same as it is now. We're not removing any pillars, any major structural part of the building, any at all, really. The space is made available by the removal of pews in the red areas that you see marked in this diagram. I'm delighted to say that many of these pews are being recycled and reused, and some even within the project itself. As you will see, there are access routes from the main stairwells into the rooms, but also through into the gallery. This allows for fire exit access, and also just to make the space as useful as possible, so you can get in through access any part of the building from the rooms. Joel, could you flick down one more, please? Here's a better diagram that shows how the atrium, the area will be dedicated to memory of Rabbi Sachs, will be connected to the 2 rooms on either side. And one more down, please, Joel. This is the current state of the development right now. And I've just shown this picture, used this picture to show that the key bit of work in the atrium is to actually level the floor so that it's one level access between each part of the development. So you can see here, pews have started to be removed and stacked at the back, and the level below will remain where it is, but the rest of the floor will be leveled off so that it's all on one floor. And Joel, could you flick again, please? This is what it looks like currently upstairs with the pews removed. So you can see it's a significant space. Where you see this sort of step down, that will be leveled and squared off with a glass encasing on either side. And the other side, Joel, if you could please show. Flick down one more, please. Yeah, thank you. And that's how the other side looks. Another key point is that we, as part of our building permission, we will be keeping all original paneling, lighting, glazing. The only additions we're really adding is the leveling of the floor and the glass encasing. A major part of the project, however, and the bit that I'm really passionate about, is restoring and redecorating this part of the building, which has fallen into quite a desperate state of disrepair. And we really want this. This is I think the key, something we really need the money for. Ensuring that we can bring this back to life in a dignified way and restore Golders Green Shore to the glorious state it should be in is really important. The redecoration project will encompass all this area, the wings on either side, which are also in a bad state of disrepair, the hole that everybody hates in the middle of the shore over the bima area and towards the arc, around the light fitting. That's been a bugbear for many of us for a long time. Apart from the insulation problems it causes, it really does let down the rest of the building. So that's going to be a key part of the renovation. We want the new refreshed look to be as vibrant and as beautiful as our community is. So it's going to be a really exciting change to the building as it is now. There will be no longer, peeling paint, holes in the wall. and we will give the building the dignity and the respect and the beauty that it deserves. I think just a final point from me is regarding a lift, which is also part of our fundraising this evening. I think it's long overdue that we provide the right sort of accessibility within our building. We have a quote, and we have now planning permission to provide a Shabbat lift from the stairwell that goes past the ladies' toilets on the right-hand side of the building up to this new development, so that anyone coming into our shul, whether they be a child attending Little Goldies, a toddler who may have mobility problems, a child attending the youth or young child services, an elderly member of our shul, or anybody visiting the Rabbi Sachs memorial space, will be able to access that space without an issue. And that's really important for us to ensure that everybody is able to be part of our community without any restriction. I think, Joel, those are the main bits I wanted to cover. If anyone has any questions, should I take it at this stage or wait?
Yeah, so thank you, Naomi. I think just to add, I think one of the really exciting things about this project is not only that we have this plan that's finally come to fruition, we're able to build these 2 glass cubes and create new programming space, but it was really the discovery quite recently, actually, that having the builders on site will enable us to restore this gaping hole in the ceiling and the redecoration of the ladies' gallery that you've seen. For a long time, we all presumed that was, a multi-million-pound project that was going to require huge kind of disruption to our community life, and it turns out safely and efficiently, our builders are actually going to be able to do this while they're on site. And that is a really exciting opportunity, rather than looking at this unattractive heat reducing hole in the ceiling for the next 10 years. We've got this opportunity while we have the builders in to actually restore the gallery, which is just was a very exciting discovery, and is now an exciting opportunity that we're kind of inviting you to support this evening. So let's move on to questions. I feel like I'm lining people up here, but I'm adding Adam to the spotlight because Adam obviously manages the financials and can also answer any questions that people may have on that. So any questions, either unmute yourself and just ask, or raise a hand and I will unmute you. Yes, Mr. Cowan. You're going to need to unmute.
Sorry, I've done it.
We can hear you now.
Aren't I technically good? Just one question. What is the duration of the build start to finish? Providing you've got all the funds in place, etc., etc.
Naomi,
yeah, sure. So it's actually, again, surprisingly short timescale. It's our builders, Artemis, who are experts in historic buildings and shuls renovations. They estimate it's a 3-month project. So given that we've started in late November, they expect it to be finished within 3 months' time, and that's due to not needing to do any major structural work. And as Joel said, we benefit from the scaffolding that's already in place and various other, the way this has come together nicely, and that they're able to utilize, they able to work on different parts of the building at the same time. And the 3-month time frame they give, I think is realistic.
Thank you.
What that does mean is that we need to kind of give them the go ahead to continue with the redecoration parts of the work, both in the shul as Naomi described, but also in other parts of the building quite soon. So yeah, the sooner we can kind of feel like we've got funds in place to give that a green light, the better.
Yeah, I was with the builders this morning, and they said to me, look, we can start the renovation within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Just like, have you got the money? So that, yeah, the ability is there to do this really quite quickly if the funds come through.
Thank you.
Benny, well done.
Very exciting project. It's great that we've got so far. I have 2 questions. One is a bit technical, which is, will the lighting in the new part be sort of matching the lighting in the main shul? Because at the moment they're completely, we still got the old type lighting in the old part and brand new lights in the new one. The question is a general one, which is, what can you give us some idea of the target that we're trying to raise?
I'll take part one, and then Adam, do you want to take part two? So Benny, so it's a great question about the lighting. Bizarrely, one of the stipulations English Heritage had was that we don't change the lighting in this section, despite the fact that those aren't the original lights. It required a whole separate planning application, which they advised us could potentially undo our existing application. It started to become a little Kafkaesque scenario, so we didn't pursue further. We do have new wiring that was put in at the last development that allows us to support LED and more energy efficient light bulbs, but yes, we have to keep the current lighting up there.
Can I say something?
Yes, of course.
Sorry, I
Right.
think
Sorry, Adam could answer the second part of the question, and then we'll come to you, Jackie.
Yeah, so I mean, to give you the breakdown of the costs, these are the numbers before VAT and contingencies. It's a little over £100,000 to build the first stage of the new space, and another just over £100,000 to build to do all the redecoration work, both in the shul and in the rest of the building that we want to do. And then the lift is £40,000. So it's about 250,000 without VAT and with no contingency. If we, we think we need to raise 350,000 in total to make sure we can do the project. We through the donations we've had already, we've got about, that Joel described, we've got about half of that in place. So we need to raise, if we want to do all of it, we need to raise about another 150,000, 175,000 pounds. The more we raise, the more we can do, and we'll obviously prioritise the redecorations work and the lift, depending on where we get to, and can kind of, we've set the contract up with the builders so we can kind of green light them on different stages as we go along whilst they're on site. So yeah, every pound you give basically will make a big difference to what we can do.
Jackie.
I was going to say that although the new lighting is probably gives more light, but actually the lights themselves are most unattractive. They've got dead insects often in the bottom of the bowls. There's wires hanging down that really aren't very attractive. The old lights have got much more character to them, and they go with the original building and the way it was built, and the whole building was built in that way. And frankly, I think if we even went back to the old lights rather than putting more new ones in, we'd be better off, but certainly not to try and change the ones in the gallery upstairs, which fortunately for us they can't do, or for me anyway, because I think they look much nicer, and the lighting up there is perfectly okay. But the acoustics still aren't great upstairs, that the lighting is fine. And I think they look much nicer. I mean, if you go into Dennington Park or any of those shuls, they've all got that kind of lighting, and it makes a huge difference. It's got character, it's got majesty, which these new ones look like goldfish bowls. They're not particularly attractive, and although they might give more light, they're not very nice.
So Jackie, the sort of the even crazier part of the situation is that we're neither allowed to change the new ones nor the old ones. So without specific permission. So it is a bit of a strange situation. As I say, so we will be keeping the original ones. Something that has been pointed out to me by the US building regulator is the bulbs within our existing lighting are too harsh. They actually like migraine inducing bright light. And so we will be looking at doing a replacement to tone down, or using some sort of dimmer system so that the lighting can be adjusted. So I agree with you, it's an extremely harsh white light, which it washes out the building justice. So that is something that we are budgeting for within the redecoration. This includes things like making the lighting appropriate without changing the fittings, even things like removing the fixtures to take out the dead flies, which is again a real bugbear of mine, and I know it is really disrespectful to have that in the shul. That is a significant cost. They are very high up, it requires scaffolding, specialist work. So it's a really good point you made, because this all costs, and it's on our list of things to rectify.
Do we have any further questions?
Guido, I think, Joe.
Guido.
Yeah, first of all, great project. The fact that we've got that much money to spend on physical appearance is great. I hope we have the same amount of money to spend on all the spiritual things we need in the shul. So otherwise we have a lot of kids up there, a lot of youth up there, but an empty shul downstairs, which is not that great. But the main question is, as far as the glass is concerned, I mean, you said it was soundproof, which we hope it will be. What about, is it kind of, do people see from inside into the shul, and do we see everything that's going up there as well, or it'll be such that we won't be able to see it as such?
So that's a really good question, and this is something that has evolved with the developers, the contractors recently. So the original permission was that it had to be completely transparent glass boxes on either side to maintain the sort of aesthetic integrity of the building. However, and we've pushed back and said, because particularly it's being used by children, and because of the dignity that needs to be maintained in the shul, we've asked to have some level of frosting up to eye level, a bit like the mechitza downstairs. It will slowly fade from the base in a frosted, and then be transparent further up where you wouldn't be able to see in, because it's obviously very distracting in a shul service to have physical commotion, even if you can't hear what's going on. In terms of the auditability aspect of it, whilst we have gone for the highest grade sound insulation glass, we want to be extra cautious, and those rooms will be used by the older groups, so you won't have the full throttle sort of singing of, you know, mummy, daddy, Shabbos is coming, and then you'd have more the older services, which are more discussion based, tefillah based, which is not the same volume. So the younger services will remain in the Ramon Hall and in the nursery, which is really well sound insulated. We don't have any disturbance from that. But it will solve the problem of we currently don't have indoor space for year 5 to 6. It's regularly 30 children in that group who are either outside in the bike shed, quite literally, or kind of scattered around the building, which isn't good for the decorum either. So no, great points.
I think and Naomi's kind of mentioned this, but both spaces are designed to be very much multi-purpose. Although the cube to the left is going to be the office space, it's a big space. So the idea will be that we'll have the office to one side and then screens so that there can be a discussion group next to it. And the other cube, while used during the nursery during the week, will have smart storage so that the nursery stuff can be packed away at the weekends, and then you get the space back for programs.
Yeah, it's very
if you were in shul over the Yom Noraim, or even on a normal Shabbat, the children's programs are literally bursting at the seams. Was really wonderful to see so many children, and thanks to the weather, we were able to do all of the programs outside. But as we move to a post-COVID world where we can be inside and at greater ease, we need these spaces to accommodate that programming. Do we have any further questions before we move on? I'm just scanning. If I can't see you and you want to ask a question, please just unmute yourself and ask.
If there aren't, Joel, can I just make one more comment?
Yeah, of course.
Before. So this is a storage related point. Many of you will be sort of as upset as I am at how much clutter there is in our vestibule and in our main shul hall. Because it is a very flexible space, and we have things, good chairs and tables and all sorts going in and out. One of the key benefits of moving the office team upstairs into this space Monday to Friday is that we then release the original office space as a downstairs storage area, and which is far better suited to it's close for deliveries and all sorts of things like that. So that's just one thing I forgot to say earlier, which is something that's going to really, there's no point doing this beautiful decoration if we continue to clutter up the space. So that's something we've really ensured in our planning, that we can then have storage space and have the building looking nice.
Guido, last question.
So just one more question for Adam or for anybody. I mean, assuming we hope you'll get the money we need, but assuming we only get a certain percentage, how are we going to split it between the various things you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think that we've made that prioritization list. I think the idea is, we'll see where we are in the fundraising in a couple of weeks' time, and work things out and have to prioritize it. But so we may have to discuss it with the community and the board and work out exactly what we want to do in which order. If we can't do everything, I mean, I have my own personal view, but I think that needs to be, we haven't had that conversation of ranking the things on the list so far.
But the beauty of this phased approach is that we can have that conversation and still finish cleanly wherever we get to, basically.
Yeah, they're not independent on each other. So the lift project, for example, if we don't do it, it doesn't impact anything else that's happening upstairs. It can be done at another time. It requires astoundingly little intervention. That can be, we can wait if we need to, but we'd rather, because we have the builders there, we have the planning permission, we will save money doing it now, and then the building can be used to its full purpose now.
Now, I promised a short program, so I think we should move on. So thank you very much, Naomi and Adam, for your answers. Now, before we move on to the appeal, we wanted to take a moment to reflect on the dedication of this project to two remarkable individuals who, as you know, in very different ways, have contributed enormously to our community over a large number of years. The passing of Rabbi Lord Sachs and Jonathan Davies over the past year have really left, and I hate to use the expression, but they've left two gaping holes in our community. And I know that we all miss them enormously. With the support of the Sachs family and Jonathan's family, we've decided, as Naomi mentioned, to dedicate the atrium to the memory of Rabbi Sachs and one of the new rooms to the memory of Jonathan Davies. As the project evolves and as we work with our builders, we'll work creatively on the nature of the physical dedication to ensure that we create a fitting and lasting tribute to both Jonathan Sachs and Jonathan Davies. But for this evening, I'd like to first invite Peter Zinken to say a few words about Jonathan Davies.
As Joel said, we miss Jonathan every day. And many of you will have seen the extensive biography, obituary of Jonathan in the JC, talking about his activities with the Liberals. In the Shul magazine, I wrote, Monroe wrote. And so we've already described Jonathan in those contexts. However, as FR, Jonathan was meticulous. He recorded, as he did in his personal life, every single detail of every expenditure that the shul made, which was exactly what he did with his own personal expenditure. Sadly, after he died, his brother and I found spreadsheets which recorded every single item of expenditure he made every month, down to the nearest penny. So he was a truly remarkable FR, and he understood the importance of really understanding the detail in order to make sure he understood what was really going on. And I think he would have been very impressed with the discussion this evening, where Naomi and the team have been able to demonstrate a complete command of that detail in terms of what it is that we're trying to achieve. And he and I worked on the development, as did Jackie and others 10 years ago, and we could take the things so far. And although we were beginning to think about whether there were ways that we could deal with some of the redecoration without spending all the money on the scaffolding, we did what was possible, and now we're 10 years later. And therefore, it does seem to me that Jonathan would have been absolutely delighted with the prospect of us actually being able to move another stage further to completing the work that we started all those years ago, because we always said that, and it goes back to a point that Guido made about whether we should be spending money on buildings or what goes on in buildings. And it always seemed to us then that what was important was that just decorating is a nice thing to do, but it's a luxury. But the wonderful thing is we're not just decorating, we're creating space for the activities that we want to engage in. And that's the reason for the project. And the fact that we can do all the other things as well on the back of that is a really excellent bonus. But I think that Jonathan would have been absolutely delighted with the fact that 10 years on, we've been able to get to what Naomi described to us all today.
Thank you, Peter. Now, the Sachs family's connection to Golders Green Shul, as you all know, dates back many years to when Rabbi Sachs was first installed as rabbi here back in 1978. Now, that's a little before my time, but I know just how much we've all valued the Sachs family's commitment and contribution to our community in more recent years. And when we asked Elaine to speak this evening, she graciously and generously accepted, for which we're very grateful. So, Elaine, over to you. Oh, I think you're muted. Sorry, Elaine, you'll need to.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, you're right. Dunster Road Shul has really been our home from home for as long as I can remember. We moved to live in Dunster Road actually in February 1979. Jonathan started a few weeks earlier than that. And it was his first rabbinical post. He'd just got smicha recently before that. And so, of course, this is where any new rabbi learning curve took place. And I think you were all very kind and understanding. And we did love it here in the community. The community was so welcoming. Those were the days of the 3 Gs, the monthly dinner with the speaker, and the education program, which was so popular that they ran out of paper to sign people up on the very first evening. Although he became the rabbi at the Western Marble Arch after just a few years, we did continue to live here in Dunstan Road right until he became chief rabbi. So all our friends here remained close. So 22 years later, we couldn't have asked for more when a house just up the road came up for sale. Who wants to start afresh in a new place and a new community? This is a wonderful, friendly and supportive community. And it is just the right size. Anyone who follows the emails that appear almost daily, requests for electricians or builders, babysitters, or many tricky technological problems with their computer will know how quickly and kindly they are all answered and taken care of. I'm so very touched by this dedication in our shul, remembering my dear husband, and I know he would have been too. Thank you all so much for your support. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Elaine, for those lovely words.
Okay.
And now some of you may be wondering what happened to Rabbi Belovski. He's been a bit quiet this evening, but we thought we'd give him the final word and ask him to make the appeal. I think the man who needs no introduction, over to you.
Thank you, Joel. Hope you can hear me. Good evening, everyone. It is extraordinarily difficult for me to sit quiet while other people are speaking, but now I get my go. Thank you very much to Mike Freer, our indefatigable MP, for his care for our community over many years. And I know Mike's not listening now because he's off with some minister in Panama, but I want to reassure him that he never asks daft questions. There are just daft answers. Thank you to Naomi for her excellent presentation and extraordinary dedication to this project, to Peter for reminding us of the wonderful contribution of Jonathan Davies to our community, and to Elaine for her support and willingness to support us as we dedicate part of the new development to the memory of Rabbi Lord Sachs. We miss both Jonathans very much, And we're delighted that we're going to be able to permanently memorialize them in this new project. Now, as Peter said, and Joel's mentioned as well, it's almost 10 years since our last major building project, about half the time that Vicky and I have led this remarkable community. We always referred to that development as the first phase, as more was always going to be needed. Since then, we've seen an explosion of need for space and provision, and with a growing community and an old, well-loved and historic building, it's now time. It's actually a much smaller project than last time, both in scale, cost, but also in terms of the amount of time it will take to complete, as you've heard. But it's also one that will really give excellent bang for buck. It will provide us with an exceptional opportunity to create vital new space, while, as you've heard, using the opportunity to transform the physical appearance of the shul in areas which so obviously need attention. Now, not only are we very fortunate to have a growing community with a bright and exciting future, but you're also a very generous community. In fact, it's only through the generosity of the whole community that we've got to where we are now. Now, I expect that some of you are thinking that an appeal like this isn't strictly necessary. Could we not just approach a small number of donors and ask them to cover the works? Now, this is where I come in. I believe very strongly in what has become known recently as the democratization of giving, a shared project spread across the community in which everyone can take part. We want to empower everyone associated with our community to contribute at whatever level they're able, and thereby play an active part in creating and forming our community's future. But this does not mean that any of us can leave it to others and let the burden fall on just a few shoulders. This is a communal responsibility for every one of us. And please think of a project like this as good housekeeping. In all of our homes, from time to time, we recognize we need to spend money on improvements and developments just to keep the place nice and also to improve when we're able. And this must be the same for our spiritual home, our beloved community. So please join us in refurbishing and upgrading the shul, which is the spiritual locus of our community. Thank you to everyone involved in devising this project, bringing it to life for the entire community, for this generation and the next. And most importantly, there's a lot of talk, but our people are seeing it through to completion. And thank you in advance to each of you for your support and confidence in our executive and rabbinic teams and in the future of our community. But most of all, thank you in advance for your generosity and commitment to constantly developing, growing and improving our provision for now, for the next and subsequent generations of Dunstan Roaders. And of course, please give generously.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Belovski. The donation details are up on your screen. We have a donation page on the website, www.golders-green-shul.org.uk/donate. You can email me or Adam, or you know where to find us in Shul. We will be engaging over the next few days and weeks, but please don't wait for the phone call. Send us an email, make a donation online, write me a letter, give me a call, whatever. We're really grateful to all of you for your generosity in advance. And thank you finally to all of our speakers this evening, to Lady Elaine Sachs, to Peter Zinken, Naomi, Adam, and finally to Mike Freer. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you for watching, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Joel. Great.
So